This is your solving equations, multiplication and division practice video. So we're going to try some of these out, show you how to do them, and then give you a chance to do some on your own. So make sure you're on the right page, looking at number 1. And remember a few things here. An equal sign creates a left and a right-hand side of an equation, and we want to get the variable by itself. So we want to end up with f equals something. Now some of you in class didn't like that the variable is on the right side. Can I switch this around? And I have 0.9f equals 7.2. If you like that, that's totally fine. So how do we get the f by itself? We have to get rid of whatever's with the f. So if we look here, we've got this 0.9 or 9/10 is with the f, and it's smushed, meaning multiplication. When they're right next to each other, always telling us that it's multiplication. So to get rid of something, we're going to do the inverse. So the inverse of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide by 0.9. So 0.9 divided 0.9 is 1. How many f's do you have down here? You have 1. Whatever you do to one side, do the other side. So I'm going to divide by 0.9 over here. I'm thinking of this as 72 divided by 9 because they each have one decimal place. So 72 divided by 9 is 8. F equals 8. Now how would we guarantee that we're correct? We check by substituting. So I now know what f is. So if I put 8 in for the f, I have 0.9 times 8. What does that give me? Well, 9 times 8 is 72, but there's one decimal point here. We've got one place, so over one place. So we move this over one place, giving us 7.2. And that checks out with our 7.2. Life is good. So let's move on to number 2. So number 1 is a multiplication question. If you look down below it, number 3 is also a multiplication question. So you're going to solve number 3 very similar to we did number 1. All right, so let's look at number 2. This is a division problem. You know it's division because we're looking at a fraction here. We still can separate a left and right side of an equation. We want to end up with s by itself. S needs to equal something. That tells us what s is. That's the idea. Since you see division, we're going to do the inverse, which is multiplication. So if I'm going to multiply, I'm going to multiply by 3.6. It's the only thing that I have there. So I don't know what s is. So we're going to figure out. So I can always multiply by the denominator. Okay, if this helps. Put that over 1, 3.6 goes into itself once, goes into itself once. We simplify that down to just being 1s or s. Whatever you do one side, do the other side. So we said times 3.6, so it's going to be times 3.6, or 3 6/10. So we got to multiply these guys. So I'm going to quickly do that over here on the side. 6 times 8 is 48. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 2 is 22. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 and 2 is 4. Okay, so we've used these are gone. I'm going to use a different color so it's not completely confusing. So we'll get a placeholder there because we're going underneath the 3. 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times 3 is 9. 10, plus 2 is 11. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 1 is 7. We're going to add these guys up. We got 8, 6, 5, and 8. Notice you have 1, 2, 3 decimal places. So I move over 1, 2, 3 like so. Answer 8 and 568 hundredths. So for this part of the worksheet, number 1 is a division problem. So is number 3. Right underneath, you can solve that the same way. Number 2 is number 1 was a multiplication. We divided to solve it. Number 2 is a division problem. We multiplied to solve it. Number 4 is very similar. So number 3 and number 4 will be on your own. However, let's flip over to the back. Make sure we understand how to handle. These guys are a little more complicated. Let's realize that these are all multiplication problems. So how do we know that? The 3 and the c are smushed, meaning multiplied. If you look here, look, wherever the variable is, there's a number smushed up next to it. So the 5k, the 5 is a coefficient, right? Right next to it means to multiply. 4 is a coefficient, 6 is the coefficient. So we're going to solve one of these and have you do the rest. So let's look at number 5. So we have 3c equals 3/5. So here's our separating the equation to a left and right. I want to get c by itself. So I'm going to divide by 3 because this was multiplication. I'm doing the inverse. Divide by 3 gives us 1c. I'm going to divide by 3 over here. Now remember, it looks a little different. They both tell us to divide 3. Dividing fractions, we are going to rewrite the first number. We're going to change division into multiplication, and we're going to do the reciprocal of 3 over 1, which is 1 over 3. Reciprocal, or we could call it the multiplicative inverse. Reciprocal or multiplicative inverse. You see that on the numerators and denominators, there's a 3 for each. 3 goes into itself once and into itself once. If I multiply these out, the numerators, 1 times 1 is 1, 5 times 1 is 5, giving us an answer of 1/5. C is 1/5. Now we did this one in class. Just a quick substitution here to check. If we substitute back in here, 3 times 1/5, 3 times 1 gets us 3, 1 times 5 gets us 5. That's kind of an easy check telling us that yes, of course, we are correct. So your job then is to do the 2 questions, number 3 and 4 here, and 6, 7, and 8 on this side. Please feel free to go back to the video and answer any questions you might have.